with most organizations already dealing with a slowdown, if not a complete shutdown due to the adverse effect of COVID-19 pandemic. Well, branding, marketing, and all of that during this period, we need a lot of creativity and tact to ensure that the message of the brand is effectively communicated. As the economic recession sets in, this is probably the most testing time for the branding and marketing businesses to connect with their audience, keep their businesses going, build a connection with new customers, and maintain pre-existing ones will now be more difficult than it has been in the recent past. Now, as the reality of post-COVID-19 becomes the new normal, certain services that require face-to-face interaction at some point will probably require a lot of changes in their method of operations. Despite the upheaval defined in this most difficult year, brands are continuing to transform in real time and lay foundations for future growth. Joining me live in the studio to prefer solutions or to actually analyze and break all of this down for understanding to a variety of ways brand and marketing business can respond to the current COVID-19 pandemic is the CEO of USP Brands Management and the author of The 7 Dimensions of Branding, Mr. Muyiwa Kayode. I must thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great to have you on the show. Thank you I really appreciate this. First, I was thinking branding in itself, it's quite wide, it's quite big. I'm looking at branding in an emerging economy like Nigeria. Can you take us through what it looks like?
Yeah, I'm happy you said branding is quite broad and it's quite big because for the first few years while we were trying to preach the benefits of holistic branding in this country, one of the challenges we had was a certain misconception of branding as some kind of cosmetic exercise. You just take something, you paint it and package it, make it look attractive, and that is branding. And that created a lot of problems for people because the content is even more important than the appearance, the outward packaging. So yes, branding has to do with the essence of your value creation. The most important thing about branding is the creation of value. If you are not creating value, you don't have a brand. And that is the starting point of whatever successful branding you want to do. So I think it's important that we get that very, very clear, so that people don't think that branding is just what you do to make something look attractive. That is important, yes, but that thing you're trying to make attractive is where the actual branding lies. So yes, once we have that understanding, then we begin to look at what role or the impact of branding in an emerging market like Nigeria. About 13 years ago, we started a program called Brand to Wealth, and the whole purpose of that is to espouse our vision of creating or helping entrepreneurs create proudly and authentic and original Nigerian and African brands. Because when we look at it, and we've done studies over the years, one of the biggest reasons why we have so much poverty across Africa is because we Africans are not building globally competitive brands. Brands create wealth, and that is why we say brand to wealth. When you grow your brand, you are creating wealth. So we need to do a lot of this across Africa, and especially in Nigeria, where we have the largest market on the continent. We need to begin to build our own brands. The more we rely on foreign brands, the more we are promoting poverty amongst our own people. So for an emerging economy like ours, we need to understand the role that brands have to play. And what that means is that we need to build brands that empower our people, that enrich our people, and that create wealth and employment for our people. And the only way to do that is to go that whole hog and go through that process. It's painstaking. It takes time. Great brands don't happen overnight.
Yeah, true.
And what we find in our economy, for the most part, is that a lot of our investors and financial institutions are too much interested in that quick return. Brands are not built that way. You need to give it time. You need to nurture it. It's like a cocoa tree that will not start yielding fruit until it's at least 5 years old. And in those 5 years, you need to do a lot of things. Apply crop protection, pesticides, apply the rules. If you don't apply the rules, in those 5 years, you're not even going to be able to reap the benefit. That is the way brands are built. But when you begin to reap the benefits, it's everlasting. And that is why we have brands today that are over 100 years old, and they are still getting bigger. They are still getting stronger.
Yeah, I noticed that when you mention some names, you can't just wish it away. But I'm looking at Nigeria in particular. Many, I don't want to use that word Nigerian factor, but many always say in this part of the world, the challenges are enormous. If it's not funding, it's infrastructure, it's being more creative and thinking through what you want to present out for your clients. How well would you say players in this industry, how well are they taking advantage of all of this and really pushing out the right brands there for Nigerians to see?
Yeah, it is true that the challenges are many, and we can't talk more than enough about these challenges. But where there are challenges, there are also opportunities. And that is what brands have done. One of the things about creating a successful brand is when you feel a need, when you meet a need, when you meet people at their point of need. It still ties into creating value. And where there are needs, we have approximately 200 million people with needs. And where there are needs, there are opportunities for brands. There are business opportunities, and we've seen a number of companies tapping into those opportunities and creating success stories in the process. I'm sorry, I may not be able to give actual examples of these specific brands, but if, for instance, we have low purchasing power, and you have a particular product, and you find out that this particular product, a lot of people cannot afford it, and you want to make it more affordable to the people. So what you do is you take the value in that product and you translate it into a particular format that makes it more affordable, that you reach more people. Sometimes that is done by creating a sub-brand or by some kind of what we call brand extension. You know, you say, okay, fine, I have X premium water. But I find out that I'm selling 2 million bottles in a year. I want to sell more than that. And then I create X premium water, maybe a smaller size or in sachet or whatever it is. And then I'm able to reach more people with the same product offering, but put in a format or in a packaging that it makes it more affordable and it expands my market. Yeah. You know, so in times like this, where people's purchasing power is dropping, brands now have that challenge to ensure that their market is not shrinking, because when your market is shrinking, you are in trouble. You know, so how do you now ensure that without losing the essence of your brand? Because sometimes there's a temptation, okay, let's water it down a little bit. Let us cut corners. Let us reduce the quality. You don't do it. Once you begin to do that, you kill your brand. You know, so it's easier said than done. It's challenging, but those brands that are able to meet those challenges, they are the ones that always succeed. And they keep reinventing themselves and redefining themselves, and they remain relevant for the long haul in the minds and lives of consumers.
Which is key. But in all of this is COVID-19 has come, almost like a second wave. We've seen budgets drop, advert budgets drop. We are also players in that industry. We live on advertising bills, and we expect all of this to come in. Now, what effect would you say this has had generally on all of the sectors, branding in a COVID-19 era?
Well, I think it has led to a reduction in how much we pay for some of these services. But during the pandemic, to start with, this is something that nobody expected. Yes. So Nobody was prepared for it. It caught us all by surprise. And in the process, we noticed that some brands were able to respond very quickly. What that means is that you suddenly find all your consumers sitting at home for months. Ordinarily, you will say, this is the best time for me to be on TV advertising my brand. This is the best time for me to be on social media advertising my product, because people are just sitting at home. Even while they're working from home, they spend more time watching TV, they spend more time on their smartphones and tablets and all of that. And some brands were able to take advantage of that. Secondly, it is also a time to respond. You see, because there is a common humanity in us that this called to question. And it was a time to respond and to show the world that you care. And we saw a lot of brands doing that, because when people have needs and you meet them at that point, they don't forget you. Brands are like humans. And when we grow brands the same way you nurture children, you know. So brands are like humans. They have a soul, they have an identity, they have a name, they have a relationship with their consumers. And during this period, we also were on the lookout, okay, fine, this thing has happened suddenly. We didn't expect it. How do you respond? How do you show your consumers that, yes, even at this point in time where things are so topsy-turvy, we are there for you. We are not just there when you have a lot of money to spend. We are also there when you are in that particular kind of situation where you are not able to spend as much as you would normally spend, when you are not even able to leave your home and go about your normal businesses. So we saw a lot of companies come out, take part in support government programs to provide succor and some comfort. We also were able to develop and implement some of such programs for some of our clients, because it is easy as an entrepreneur to sit back and be thinking of how much you're going to lose. Oh, this thing has happened, we're not making sales. But what times like this require is for you as a brand to step up and make yourself more relevant in the lives of consumers. Yes, some brands were able to do that. And long after the pandemic, the impacts that those brands were able to make will remain stamped in the minds and souls of their consumers for a long time to come.
Let's round up on this note. As we move on, let's agree that it gets better. The figures are dropping, COVID-19 in Nigeria. What are the prospects and projections? What do you think would be happening in the sector as we move on?
Well, COVID-19 has changed everything forever. Business will never return to pre-COVID-19 levels, format, templates, and all. The way we do business has changed. COVID-19 has been kind of a disruptor. It has kind of changed the landscape in so many ways. It has created new business opportunities. It has created new opportunities for people to build new brands. And some companies have actually taken advantage of those opportunities, and we are seeing what they're doing by virtue of what challenges came with COVID-19. So going ahead, companies now have to reposition and remain competitive. How does COVID-19 and its implications and its fallout, how does it affect our competitiveness in the market? That is the question that each brand owner now has to ask himself. How does it affect our competitiveness, and what do we need to do to maintain and even increase our competitive advantage in the market? Is it in terms of how we apply technology? Is it in terms of our staff welfare? Is it in terms of how we relate with our customers? Is it in terms of how we reassign our marketing and advertising spend into the new, more effective media? These are the questions that, and there is no one straight answer to all, because every brand has its own unique story, and you are going to have to respond to this situation and stay ahead of the curve based on your brand story, your brand vision, and what your immediate and medium to long-term goals are.
Very interestingly said there. Thank you very much for your time. Chief Executive Officer of USP Brand Management and author of The 7 Dimensions of Branding, Mr. Muyiwa Kayode. Thank you very much for your time on the show. I really appreciate it.
Always.